Good afternoon, sir. This is the Group B 4th year batch 3. Our report is regarding to the domestic violence, especially here in the Philippines. Domestic violence. Violent, aggressive behavior within the home, typically involving the violent abuse of a spouse or partner. Domestic violence. Definition. Domestic violence in the legal field serves as a tag added to the end of a charge to describe it, such as assault, domestic violence, or malicious mischief. Domestic violence. In the sense, domestic violence is not a crime itself, but a category of crime in relation to legal matters. It is important to acknowledge the legal definition of domestic violence: physical harm, bodily injury, or assault. Creating a fear that physical harm, bodily injury, pushing, shoving, slapping, punching, kicking, or assault will happen soon. Sexual assault, stalking. Then, a Philippine National Demographic and Health Survey said in 2017 that 1 in 4 Filipino women aged 15 to 49 has experienced physical, emotional, or sexual abuse by their partner or husband. Sadly, authorities revealed in June that statistic has risen since COVID-19 lockdowns began in March this year, when and where Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte told reporters that around 602 women, or an average or 8 per day, were maltreated or raped across the country from March 17 to May 23. She said Quezon City's Women and Children Desk now receives at least 12 complaints of domestic abuse per week. Before the pandemic began, the number was around 5. Although the coronavirus has shut down many help desks, victims can now reach authorities online. Officials said they expected the numbers of abuse. WHO. The Philippine Center Women's Resources reported that more than 16 million Filipino women were economically insecure. The report also showed that poorer women were more vulnerable to abuse because they could not defend themselves.
Under the RA 92662, VAW, or violence against women, refers to any series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate. Why domestic violence happen? Whether alcohol and drug use is a factor or not. Domestic violence and abuse is a very serious problem for the victims and the abuser, although the studies seem to indicate some link between alcohol or drug misuse and domestic violence. Others believe that they are two separate issues.
Domestic abuse is not so much a loss of control as it is about total control. Ironically, many batterers do not see themselves as perpetrators but as victims. This reasoning is common among batterers, and many have elaborate denial systems designed to justify or excuse their actions. How? Domestic violence occurs when a person uses physical violence, coercion, threats, intimidation, isolation, stalking, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or economic abuse to control another partner in a relationship. Survivor: the individual who is being targeted for abuse. Abuser: the individual who is inflicting the abuse. Cause. Violence is an extreme form of aggression such as assault, rape, or murder. Violence has many causes including frustration, exposure to violent media, violence in the home, neighborhood, and a tendency to see other people's action as hostile even when they're not. This is the four causes of violence. Number 1, biological, socialization, cognitive, and the last, situational factors.
So, we have two examples of cause of violence during and before pandemic. And during pandemic, being quarantined for extended period can So, we have two examples of cause of violence during and before pandemic. And during pandemic, being quarantined for extended period can resulting in a surge of domestic violence cases during this time. This is a growing concern that needs to be addressed by raising awareness and helping those who are affected. According to the World Health Organization, or WHO, 1 out of the 3 women experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. Since the change brought by COVID-19 can significantly impact one's mental well-being, those who are emotionally unstable tend to release tension to extreme ways. And then the second cause of example of cause violence before pandemic, a Philippine National Demographic and Health Service said in 2017 that 1 in 4 Filipino women aged 15 to 40 physical, emotional, or sexual abuse by their partner or husband. Sadly, authorities revealed in June that this statistic has risen since COVID-19 lockdowns began in March this year. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte told reporters that around 602 women, or an average of 8 per day, were maltreated or raped across the country from March 17 to March 29. At 23.